Hey everybody, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Gail Singer, founder and president of Circa Lighting, and just want to thank everybody for coming. We have over 300 people attending, which is amazing. So thank you, Zoom, for also making this possible. Couldn't have done that if we were just in a showroom, so that's very exciting as well. Today, we're going to be talking to DJ Carey, who's the editorial director of Connecticut Cottages and Gardens, and Matthew Patrick Smyth. Matthew is an A-list interior designer and author. We'll be discussing his new book, hot off the presses. I'm so excited that I was able to score one. Through a Designer's Eye, a focus on interiors. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to hand this over to DJ and Matthew. And also, please feel free to submit any questions that you may have at the bottom of the screen, and we will try to answer as many as possible. And additionally, we will be gifting the book to the first 50 people who have registered and also attended. So be looking for this book in your mail. So without further ado, DJ, take it away.
Thanks, Gail, and thanks, Circa Lighting. You know, you're an important partner to Cottages and Gardens and all of our titles, and you're even more important to the design trade because you're such a great resource in terms of technical information and just beautiful, beautiful pieces. So I'm thrilled to be talking, and I wish we were in your showroom, but I'm so excited because you have a new showroom in Connecticut, which thrills me. So I will be there soon. But
excellent.
I'm so happy to be here today. And hi, everyone. If you haven't heard of Matthew Patrick Smyth, get ready because he has just produced
DJ, I think you muted yourself.
Sorry, guys, I'm back. So I'm thrilled. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Circa. Thank you for everything. Matthew, thank you for coming today and speaking with me. I think that this is one of the few design books that I actually read from cover to cover. I was amazed with what I learned about you, even though I thought I knew you. And I love the fact that you really wove three art forms together in this book. It was your love of theater, your love of photography, and your love of design. And it's really interesting how you told the stories of each of the projects in this book. And one of the mechanisms that I loved were the individual photographs that you took, and they informed the bigger picture. And it's interesting how that affects how you look at another image. So I wanted to start with, when did you start taking pictures?
Well, I started taking pictures actually in high school, and I'm a self-taught photographer. And for a while there, I thought I was going to be a photographer. But I was a theater major first at school in college, and then I switched to business. And then I toyed with the idea of going back to photography, but I was still taking pictures. And then I actually stumbled on interior design as a career. It wasn't on my roster of things to do in life. And so when I started it, I sort of put the camera down about 25 years ago and just had point and shoots. But it wasn't until really the iPhone came around, and then I started taking pictures with it, you know, for clients, finding antiques and things like that, and then realizing my pictures had to be a little bit better than just, you know, just sending it.
But I also love the fact that on your Instagram account, the images are majestic. They're really beautiful. And I do encourage designers out there to follow you on Instagram because it's really wonderful what you choose to put up on your account.
Well, you know, I edited it closely, and I just, you know, I thought, you know, as a designer, if I present a photograph, I want it to be the best I can do. And
so let's talk about your new house that I've been dying to get into in Connecticut. So what drew you to this house? Because it's very different for you.
Very different. I was living previously in 1790 house in Sharon, Connecticut in the Village, which you
Which I
covered.
loved.
Thank you. And I loved it too. I mean, I still love it thinking back. But it was, you know, I was always toying with looking at real estate just as a project or, you know, as something else to do. I saw the ad for this house quite a few times over the couple of years, and it just wasn't in the price range I would think about. And then I was drawn to the bones of the house. I could see that it needed a lot of work, but the price, one Saturday morning, the price dropped significantly. So I called my friend, Elise Harney Morris, and I said, what's the story? So she told me it was an estate situation, and he had left to do his caretakers, and it was time to sell. So I went over to see it that on a Saturday morning, similar weather today. So everything was beautiful outside. And I bought it that afternoon.
Wow.
With the idea that I always wanted to take a ranch and see what I could do with it, because I grew up upstate New York in the land of ranch houses. So it was always like a challenge I wanted to give myself. So with this house, I just thought, okay, I'm either going to fix it up and sell it, or maybe move in here. I wasn't sure. So about 3/4 way through, I thought, okay, I'm moving here. So
I love the views from this house, and
yeah.
this open space in the living and dining area. Is that correct? You combine the spaces. You did something interesting. You can't see it in these images, but in the book, and everyone should buy the book, there's a little alcove that you created.
Right.
Why?
Right behind that mask. Well, there's a sofa that's inside there. And that was, when I bought the house, that was the entrance hall, and you walked right into the middle of the living room. And I didn't like that. So I created this alcove where you had to walk around, adding a little bit of sort of mystery and a little bit more of a space you can get to before you walk into the big open space. And I'm sorry you don't have that picture there, because that sofa there facing the view is really spectacular.
And you created it just so people can really take in the view.
Exactly. And I spent a lot of time in this room. You know, even though it's a dining table at the end, I work there almost every day, even though I have an office. But I tend to spend the mornings there, and I read the newspaper there. So I use the room quite a bit.
Besides, what other structural changes did you make to the structure?
Well, this picture right here, this is the room I'm actually sitting in. That was the garage before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so those 3 windows was the garage door, and everything's different. There's nothing, you know, when I show the before and after pictures, it's quite dramatic. And even now when I look back at the before pictures, I thought, what was I thinking? Why did I mean, everybody's thought it was crazy. I didn't think I was.
Bachelor pad with shag rugs?
Yeah, he was a very beloved airline pilot for Pan Am. And he was, you know, if these walls could talk, it was really sort of Playboy magazine, shag carpets, jacuzzi, everything.
And let's now move on to the palette. You really restricted yourself to only, what, 3 colors in this?
Just barely 3. There's like a white dove on the walls, but the strong color that's running throughout the house, that dark color, is Benjamin Moore's Notre Dame, which I've been using a lot lately. I have to find a new color, but it's been I love that color because it's neither here nor there. Some people see green in it, so it has that dark bronze look occasionally when the light hits it, or it looks charcoal. It keeps changing with the light.
I know you travel a lot and you find interesting pieces, but going back to that previous shot, there was chairs there. Where did you find those chairs?
I actually found them not far away at the Rhinebeck Antique Show, and they were, which I'm sorry, I'm not going to admit that's not going to happen this year, but
I know.
Those are just from an upstate New York country club, and the original green, sort of, you know, this fake leather. So, but I'm sitting in it now. It's quite comfortable.
I love them. They're great looking.
Yeah. And everything has a story. You know, I don't really buy anything just for the sake of buying it. So,
right.
You know, like when I deal with antiques with clients, I love the idea of shopping around, because years later we have stories about where we found things and where we had lunch and where, you know, dealer was. You know, that's what's nice about working with pieces like this, is that you develop a sense of history with your client.
But are you still shopping with your clients? I've heard that designers aren't really doing that anymore.
I'm not shopping with them, but I am sending them pictures of lots of things.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And this is your bedroom. Again, it's that deep color,
on the walls in there. And then, and it's just filled with things that I like. I still, you know, one thing about doing this house is I have to edit myself and not get too much, you know, because I can easily fill this up. And so I have to control myself, but I still leave spaces like those night tables where I can put some things that I love to look at.
Now tell me about how you do these tableaus, because everyone panics about
Well,
putting
these are just basically things that remind me of places where I've been. I tell people you don't necessarily have to buy, like if you're traveling to a country, you don't necessarily have to buy the thing that reminds you about the country there. So occasionally I find things that are Turkish here in the United States that remind me of my trip to Turkey.
Oh, great idea.
It doesn't necessarily have to, you should take the pressure off when you're traveling and just, unless you stumble on something. But, you know, that one piece, the elephant, reminds me of my trips to India and North Africa and things like that. So it's all things that catch my eye that I love looking at. And like I said, I don't pick out anything just for the sake of it. You know, I have to really like it. I have to get some sort of thrill about looking at it. So.
Well, and I love this bathroom space. And you say in the book that the views from here are really spectacular.
And what's nice about living in the woods, I don't necessarily need a window treatment. It's only out there, so it's not, you know, it's not a big deal. So, and I use that same color. This is my partner's office.
Which is beautiful. And I love the fact that you kept the ceiling white, but you accented those beams.
Exactly. Well, you know, this is what they called a deck house. It was a group of architects who did these prefab houses in the 70s.
Oh, the acorn houses.
Exactly. That's where they are now. And so it was all a lot of wood. It hadn't aged well, just because of the nature of the house, not because of the architects. But so you know, it was time to rethink it.
So look at that view on your deck. That's gorgeous.
And what's nice, you know, what's nice about this view is that even in the winter when the leaves go, I have a spectacular clear mountain view all the way around. So it's really nice. But you know, I've been living in village houses most of my life. You know, it was nice. This is a different experience for me.
You went really out in the country. And for all of you who are in the Zoom, I just wanted you to let you know that the November issue of Connecticut Cottages and Gardens has more of Matthew's home in Connecticut. So we just tried to whet your appetite. So stay tuned. So moving along, can you tell me how you came up with the smaller images that you chose for the book? Like, what was your thinking when you chose these images?
Well, you know, I knew what projects were going to go in the book. So I was sort of trying to tie them in with some of the images that I knew we had photographs of, but they don't necessarily, they're not necessarily directly involved with the project. Okay. Sort of mood board, if nothing else. They're things that possibly could have influenced me by, you know, things I've seen in the past. So that's why I sort of line them up this way. But and it's mostly a lot of things to do with travel, and this is Central Park on the lower corner there, and then Versailles in the middle, and so it's, you know, it's and Hudson, New York in the middle on the top. So it's not necessarily far away. It's just things that catch my eye during the day, any given day.
So I love this house, and this is the foyer, but I love the fact that this is a brand new house. So how do you make a brand new house look like it has a history?
Well, luckily the client loves good architecture. She has, you know, a traditional bent, and she loves beautiful furniture. And so it was great working with her on this. But it's about adding the correct moldings, the correct detailing back to the house that could have been there. We're not trying to fool anybody to think this is an old house. We're just trying to give it the best care we can as far as scale and proportion.
And then this is the same house, but I love the fact that you chose this medium dark palette. And why was that?
Well, this room, you know, this gets very good sunlight in the afternoons. So I wasn't worried about it getting too dark if somebody wanted to do it in the day. But it's mostly used at night. I would say 90% of the time this room is used at night. And
so did you design a lighting system so that the room would look good during the day and at night? And how often do you think about that when you're designing a room?
Well, I think about it all the time. I think about, you know, how do people want to use this room? How do they want to look in the room? You know, what's the purpose of the room? So in this case, you know, it's mostly a nighttime room with their friends coming over for drinks or pre-dinner or, you know, getting together. But so I really relied on lamplight for this room and sconce light, because there's something I still love an old-fashioned lamp. You know, you know, of course, you know, we do a lot of ceiling lights, but there's nothing better than the glow you get from a lamp.
Yeah, and it's lower, you know, it's closer to you. So it has that romantic sex appeal to it.
Exactly, and it's very inviting, and usually everybody looks good in that light.
This is still the brand new house that looks amazingly old, but beautifully aged. And there's patina in the room. So how did you achieve that in the new house?
Sure. Well, a lot of it had to do with the pieces that we chose, as far as the tables and chairs. We still have some contemporary pieces here, these chairs are from Rudin, and I had the banquette made. But it's about picking pieces that already have their own patina to them, or sense of place.
Now,
So,
that lighting fixture over the dining table, it looks like it's an exterior light, or am I
yeah, it probably was. Yeah, that's an Irish fixture, and I picked it because it was casual. This is sort of the breakfast room.
okay.
There is another dining room that has a more formal chandelier in it, but I love this room because I didn't want anything that formal in this room, and so that's why we chose that fixture.
I'm in heaven in this room because I love the fact that you made something so pretty. You know, people are afraid to do pretty. Now, I'm a girl that loves pretty. So I saw this picture and I went crazy.
You know, it was so nice. It was so nice to do pretty again. You know, I came into work in the 80s and we were all doing pretty back then.
Exactly.
It was so
not pretty.
So, that's where my roots were. And it was so nice to deal with flowers, but also balance it out with some neutral tones so it wasn't too heavy. But
I like the fact that you also talk about this pillow in the book because it's a nod to craftsmanship, and you have a love of the craftsman's hand in all of your spaces. Can you talk about why?
well, it's just that's the difference between that's what makes a room unique. That's what adds the quality to a room. In my book, in each chapter, I tried to take one piece. There's the last page in each chapter is usually focused on one piece in the apartment or the house, and it talks about why we picked it, or
Wow.
and what it meant to the client, and how we found it. In this case, this is Rebecca Vizard from Louisiana, who does these beautiful pillows, and she found this cloth in Istanbul, and it was originally part of a bigger cloth that they used to take and wrap their goods in, whether it was vases or plates, and travel with them. Wow. So she found this piece and she took the embroidery off them and mounted it on a new piece of velvet. So it has a whole new life again, and a history and a story.
Yeah, and it's unusual. You don't see it everywhere.
And you're not going to see it again. You're not going to see this anywhere else because there's only one. And that's the nice thing about working with unique things like antiques or old fabrics. And you add something that not everybody can have. That's what you bring to the table, is this sense of uniqueness.
Again, your beautiful imagery. I love this stuff. I spent a lot of time staring at all these images.
Well, when I started the Instagram, I didn't, up until now with my book, there's very few of my interiors on Instagram that I post.
I noticed.
Yeah, it's just because I felt this can help. This is where it all comes from. Whether the room is fine, but this is sort of
your inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. This is where it all starts.
This townhouse was amazing. It's in New York, but it looks like a very tight area. And then I saw this beautiful chandelier. And what's interesting to me is that people panic about the length, the height, the width of a chandelier in a foyer. It's either right or it's not. And this is perfect. So can you talk about how to deal with the chandelier and how to figure out what would work and what wouldn't?
So often with lighting fixtures, especially hanging fixtures, do you want the hanging fixture to be the first thing you notice when you walk in your room? Usually not. So, but you don't want it to be so skimpy that it doesn't relate to anything else there. So in this case, this chandelier lighting fixture worked perfectly because we have this narrow space that's sort of, and this round effect, and it was a very vertical, as with the staircase. And what's nice about also dealing with, you can borrow something and hang it up and see what it looks like. That's the nice thing. And that's what I love about doing with pieces like this. But anybody could pick something like this. It's about a sense of scale, and every space is different. That's what's interesting about working with you never know what obstacles you're going to come across. And that was perfect. What
inspired the design of this space?
Well, we'll get to it later. I mean, the color scheme came off a painting
Okay.
that her father found in the 60s in Paris, and a painting of an owl. So we didn't match that, but we knew that was the first thing we knew was going to go into a room. So I can't say we didn't match colors to it, but subconsciously that worked its way into everything, that painting over the fireplace.
Yeah, I love that owl shot, but I also love the fact that you talk about that all the new upholstery that you put into the spaces in this townhouse in New York, that you had the same upholsterer make it. And I was wondering whether you could talk about why that's so important.
Oh, but some of the pieces, like the sofa in the previous shot, belonged to her mother. And she had it made at Anthony Lawrence Bell Fair years ago. And I use Anthony Lawrence Bell, this is one of my go-to sources. So I just thought, well, you might as well keep the same hand on everything. So, and they were going to reupholster it for us. And it just felt very natural to keep it all in house.
Because it's the first time I've heard a designer talk about that. Again, look at this chandelier. This is a piece of art. It's beautiful.
That's by Jacques Jarige. It's for the Valerie Goodman Gallery in New York. And he's a French artist. And what's interesting about that piece, if you unfolded, unraveled it and pressed all those arms down, it's one sheet of brass.
Wow.
So it's like a piece of rectangular brass, and it's just cut into strips. And then he molds the strips to form the chandelier arms.
Very cool. Very cool.
One of my favorite.
And again,
that's double.
The same room.
Excuse me. The same room. The other,
space. Yeah.
And that's a piece her mother had. I love working with when clients have nice pieces that they love. That reminds them of their families. I mean, I love working that into a space.
And you're not opposed to it. I mean, some designers like to start new, but these people definitely had an eye and had a fabulous art. They have
a very good eye, and they know nice furniture. So it was a privilege to work with it.
And I love the fact that you added art in the kitchen.
She actually had that painting, and then these Corbusier prints. I was doing a lecture in Nantucket, and it was during an antique show, and there was a dealer from London with those prints. When I walked in, I knew my client would be at that lecture, so I thought, I hope she sees these prints. And then when I was done with the lecture, she said, I have to come show you some prints that went. So it's
great.
Story to something, so which is fun.
Again, I love your black and white. Why are you inspired by black and white photography?
Well, it's just sometimes it's the mysteriousness. Like some of these are color actually, but it just has that great effect. But yes, they're more or less black and white photography. The one in the middle and the lower one is Los Angeles.
Wow, it looks like it's in Europe.
Yeah. I know, it's shot over the Chateau Marmont, and you can see this LA skyline in the background in the haze. But
in the haze, yes.
But this was really fun. This was something I did at the last minute. This was, and if people remember the Holiday House show house, I did this for Schumacher and Traditional Home.
Wow.
And
it was beautiful.
I got a call from the editor, and she said, I need a favor. We had this room, it's our 25th anniversary room, and it was Schumacher's 125th anniversary. And the person's dropped out at the last minute. We're going to press in the morning. Will you do this room? I didn't even know what room it was.
Oh my God.
So can I sleep on it? And I just thought, they've been good to me. Sure, I'll do it. So, and I had the best time on it. It was really so much fun.
Well, you talk about the fact that there are a couple that you had furnishings from different periods, but they were all your favorite periods. So can you tell us what your favorite periods are?
I love Regency furniture. I've always have. That's one of those things when I worked for that I was always attracted to. So there's the consoles on each side of the sofa are Regency, and then there's chairs from David Duncan Antiques. And but then I have a mid-century modern piece, the Ed Wormley chair right there in front of the fireplace. Is one of my favorite chairs. I think it's so beautiful.
And you also added sculpture into this space.
Well, I have this plaster of Lafayette, which I have my own copy of that right here. And this piece I love. It's a Japanese artist. I can't remember his name, but I found that at the very last minute. I bought it and I own it. So that's mine. It's
gorgeous. It has a lot of movement.
It does. That was a lucky find. That's the nice thing. You go out and you never know what you're going to find.
Right.
You know,
Sometimes
that's
you
nice.
come back empty-handed, and sometimes.
Sometimes all it takes is one piece. That's my motto, you know. But this is color, and this is everything from 42nd Street to Mumbai.
Yeah,
So
it's gorgeous. I love the energy of these images.
you know, when I worked for David Easton, one of the things I took away from working with him is the sense of having to travel as a designer and having to see things in person and experience firsthand. And I think with the with the iPhone too, it's very immediate, and you have to be constantly aware because these pictures disappear fast because everything changes. People move away, or
Right.
lighting changes, and so it's been really good for me. It's been a great exercise.
Talk about this, talk about drama in a room, because I think that this space, this Soho space, has a lot of drama. So
Yep.
let's talk about.
Yeah. Well, you know, I do think that there are spaces that and times where a sense of theater or drama can come into play and make it, especially a vast space, more interesting. And you know, you want to sometimes stick with more bolder choices than usual, and contrasts. And but at the same time, you know, there's a lightness to it. You know, I really believe in a solid furniture plan, and to keep everything organized. And then I add on top of that. So that's what. And you know,
The artwork is rather large scale.
yeah, this piece on this wall, that's Peter Morganelli, who's one of my favorite photographers. He shot that in Mumbai many years ago, and it was through a closed photography studio, and it had been closed for years. And there was a little photograph there, and it was covered in cobwebs. And he shot it through the window, and he showed it to me, and I said, I want to work with this. So we blew it up and separated into 9 images. And it was nice. Each image on its own could be a separate piece. It's just one of those magic photographs that works so well. And a lucky find. I was just going through his archives.
No, it's absolutely gorgeous. And here's the piece again. But I love that this image talks about the palette of this room. And going back to your original pictures where red was like a little note everywhere in those images, that you see it now in this vignette.
Mm-hmm. And this is, and then this room here, this dining room, is what they call a bonus room, which means nothing.
That's a great bonus room, let me tell you.
You know, but it was just, you know, 3 walls with no window. And so I decided to do this courtyard effect by taking Schumacher wallpapers and doing, you know, carefully with a very good wallpaper hanger, develop these various elevations with him, and up, and you know, and driving up the drama a little bit with the chandelier and the scale of the chairs. And
how do you not make that pattern look too busy? Because some people say, no way.
Well, if you look at the pattern, you look at everything from the pattern on, everything else is very solid and quiet. So, you know, even those columns are, you know, with the ebony columns, and then the velvet on the chairs. You know, I'm not, in this case, I'm not doing pattern on pattern on pattern. It's just the walls are the pattern, everything else is neutral.
Got it. It gives it air. And this bed, how did you create that headboard?
Well, I'd seen this piece in Connecticut Artifacts, and it was just in pieces in the warehouse back there. And I've always had my eye on it. And then when I had to do this space, I remembered it. So I went back to look at it, and I realized, you know, this could really work well here.
What was it, a doorway or?
It was a doorway.
Okay.
So I put the pieces back together on the wall, and then I added gray mirror inside, because regular mirror would be too jarring and too much information. So it's a gray mirror back there. And
it's beautiful because it adds an unexpected depth to that space, you know.
And that's one of my carpets from Patrick Flynn Martin.
Oh, nice plug.
Yeah, exactly. And this was the you know, the office.
Tell me what that desk is made of.
It's a steel drum that was cut in half. So I took the 2 pieces and I made an S curve, and then Alpha Workshops made the top for me. And
it's really interesting.
And so I have this lacquered grass cloth on top of this raw steel piece. So it's a nice contrast.
And it's circular versus rectangular, which is so nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
This room, I gotta just tell you, this room has me because I love the value of that color, and it's so rich without being in your face. And in the book, you talk a lot about balancing the wow.
Well, I think some materials almost have too much wow. It's like every piece is calling out for attention. And I love the balance. I love the quiet moments mixed with stronger moments. And then, so in this case, we have the artwork is very powerful, which starts off trying to find a good background for the artwork. But this client has beautiful pieces too to work with, and then like this is her grandmother's piece.
Wow.
And
I
yeah,
love
it was
the saturation of
yeah.
that color. But
And
it's not jarring. And I love this. How do you light art? Do you actually work with an art consultant or
yeah,
light consultant for that?
well, yeah, definitely. I know about lighting, but lighting keeps changing, and I also feel as an interior designer, you can't know everything. I think we're like movie directors. We hire the best actors and writers and lighting people and cinematographers, but we have to let them do it the best thing. So I really feel with lighting, I'm very happy to turn that over to somebody I trust, especially in this case, because this has to be perfect. This has to be, there's no guesswork with lighting something like this.
So are we seeing natural light in this with?
A little bit coming from the side room, but mostly it's not. Mostly it's interior.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to light it so you appreciate it all times of the day and night.
Yeah.
Well, there's that Irish green we love, Matthew.
I know, right?
Oh, this story I love because it was a couple who decided to work together to create an incredible house with your help. And it's got to be interesting to work with a couple who are just starting together, like how to guide them into creating a look that suits them and they're happy with.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting to work with them, and they have a very good eye to begin with, so that was great. And this color style, these are colors that she's always loved. She dresses with these colors. They're just colors that she's always been attracted to. So it was about bringing the right fabrics to her within that range. And they were open to ideas. I remember he gave me the best line. He said, very, important businessman. And he said, so I was showing him a scheme. He said, okay, sell it to me. Because I'm not sure I like it, sell it to me. So I love that challenge. And I got up there and I just sold it. He says, okay, good, we'll do it. So, I love things like that. But,
so did this palette, look at the views. How do you deal with the views and not blocking them and not having anything fade?
Well, we do have, behind here, we do have shades that come down, but even with that, things fade. And you have to, I think, so I'm very careful about what fabrics go closer to the window, with the exception of the red leather stools. That red leather keeps fading. I've recovered them twice. So I have little slip covers made for them for every day, but the red seems to go faster than any other color. And there's nothing quite like that. But we love the way it looks.
It's gorgeous. I mean, it's so dramatic. And then again, back to the lighting. With a room that gets this much natural light, you have to be
this is more important now than ever, because so many, including my house, so many houses being built now with emphasis on the windows and the outdoors coming in.
Right.
Before that, we had normal windows to deal with, and sunshine pouring into every room wasn't necessarily the goal, but now it is. So it's just something to be more aware of.
I also love the fact that you used these high contrast palette here, because it makes the space seem more contemporary or more modern. Exactly. Where when you look at the elements, they're more traditional.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about you, because what happens when you do a color like this, everything else stands out more. So you appreciate what's on top of it, like the artwork or the sconces and then the chandelier this way. This is also a very big room, so I wanted to make it cozy at night, because sometimes it's just the two of them having dinner. And so I just wanted something that worked for the two of them or worked for 25 people. 26.
Right, you do have to think about how the room is being used and what time of day, so that this way it's functional.
Yes, exactly. And to try to always be aware of that.
Oh, now here's my big question about being appropriate for where a house is located. And I love the fact that this is a couple from Rhode Island, that decided to kind of shift gears. And
Yeah.
this is a house in Naples, Florida.
And they had another house that was not as new as this one, and it had a lot of their antiques from Rhode Island in it, which were all very nice. And then we were going to just build an addition to that house, and she fell in love. She saw this house, and she bought it. We looked at it, and she bought it. But the antiques weren't going to really work, and she really wanted to change. They wanted a new life together, and they wanted something that was just open, easy, and really about the light. And we started from scratch.
How do you deal with all these different heights of the ceilings so that, because it can look very vast and the people can feel very miniature. So how do you fix that?
Sure. Well, I try to concentrate on what's down below, the lower third. And that's really what, where the detailing is, and where the colors are, where the textures are. So I try to make that as inviting as possible. Because once you start sitting in a room like this, your eye level is going to come down anyway. So I try to make that as warm as possible.
Interesting. I love that space. And all those windows retract into the
retract into the wall. It was, it's a really nice house. I wish I had it. Mm-hmm.
Don't we all?
I know, right?
I mean, the textures are beautiful, but again, they're appropriate for being in Florida. I noticed that there weren't a lot of window treatments.
Right. No, I try to keep Florida, but I try not to do like a cliched Florida,
The seashells.
Exactly. No seashells in this house. So, but
Well, it's beautiful. I had to include this picture for many reasons. The first reason is that you have been so generous as a person, and you always give back. And I love when designers really embody the whole aspect of philanthropic interest. And this was a great project that you did for the Ronald McDonald House. And it did run in New York Cottages and Gardens. And it's a fabulous room. But when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, it's a little loud. But why don't you talk about why you did what you did?
Well, this actually started thanks to you, because I was judging a Connecticut Cottages and Gardens contest, and Anthony Barrato was on the team with us, and he mentioned to me, he goes, well, I did this Ronald McDonald House 25 years ago. It's, it needs help, and we're asking designers to come out and maybe do a room. Would you be interested? So I went out there, and there was, lots of bedrooms and sitting rooms and, spaces like that. But they had a Mets room because the owner of the Mets was on the board of Ronald McDonald House out there.
Oh.
So it was white walls with a lot of decals on it. No real, except for, a baseball player with a bat. There was no real Mets room. They call it the Mets room, but it wasn't really that, it wasn't designed, I should say. So I've done 11 show houses, but I thought, if I'm going to do the show house, I need a challenge. This is something that I will never do again. Nobody's going to ask me to do a Mets room again. I mean, I hope they could do now, but
you never know.
I'll do it. So we had 3 choices. So I put down Mets 1, 2, and 3. So, and then they called me later saying, we're shocked you want it. We never thought you'd ask for it, but it's yours. So I dealt with the marketing team a little bit for the Mets, and that didn't go anywhere. So I decided to do it all on my own. So I found all these pennants are framed. I found those on eBay. I spent a lot of time on eBay.
Wow.
And Anthony Lawrence Belfair donated the sofa, and Schumacher donated the fabric. And so they still had the problem with the car. Yankees is easy, Mets is hard. So this orange and blue combination wasn't easy. Yeah. So I and then also just so the little detail I added is these strip moldings, and that's inside there. You'll see that those are the emblems from baseball caps. I found somebody who sold me 20 of them.
Wow.
And so that's up there in the little details and the baseball diamond underneath the TV. But anyway, so I was looking. I went to Schumacher, and they didn't have this combination. So I was up in Canaan, Connecticut, a legal floor covering. And so I was looking through his books in the back, and nothing. He says, well, why are you looking for this combination? I said, well, I'm doing a Mets room. He said, why don't you just Mets carpet? So what Mets carpet? So he pulls down this book, and it's all these teams had their own carpets, which
really
the marketing team of the Mets had no idea.
Oh,
so there was the Mets carpet, and and
Amazing.
made the room. And what's really nice about doing this, I've done 11 show houses and they've all been for great causes. I've done 5 Kips Bay. Everything's wonderful and everything adds up. But this was a room that was going to be left behind. I wasn't taking it out when it was over. It's still being used today.
Oh,
Carey just wrote to me not too long ago saying he was there and it looks exactly the same as I left it. And then how kids are still enjoying it. And it's full all the time. And
well, it makes me smile every time I see it. Like you want to be in it. It's just fun.
It's so much fun. I had such a great time doing it. I'm now an expert on the Mets. What you don't see here is there's a wall of history of the Mets. So starting back from the polo fields right through today, there's a wall of Life magazine covers and things like that. I should have shot that, but it didn't. But, so I asked me about the Mets. I know everything now. So
it's good.
Sorry, J-Lo's not getting it. But.
Well, we have some questions. So let me, thank you, Matthew. But now comes the hard part. Let's see what they have you.
Well,
let's see. Lisa Giles says, I like the table where the green leather chairs are. Where would I find one? It was that beautiful round table that I think is in your office.
Yeah, it's not an old antique. It's a 1960s piece.
Oh, really?
I found this many years ago. You'll see it in my last book also next to my bed. But it's a table I keep traveling with, and it's really held up well. And it's a faux potpourri finish. And I found it. It was done in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and I've had it since my first apartment.
It's fabulous because you can use it anywhere.
Yeah, I've gotten, it's been in so many locations. And I've also used a few show houses. If you look back, this table will pop up. It's like Finding Waldo, it's
So Chloe Sealback asks, what kind of camera do you use, your phone or an actual digital camera? So you talked about using your iPhone, but do you ever use a digital camera?
I do. I have a Sony mirrorless that I use, but the images that I really love are off the iPhone.
Oh.
The digital camera I have, I've taken nice pictures, but it's very definite. There's not it's so crisp, but the iPhone pictures have a little bit of the old film quality to me. There's a little blurry. It's a little bit soft. And
back to your theater days.
Totally. The other one's great, but it's more like for I have these pet projects that I do where I want to document certain things, and that camera's great for that. But the iPhone pictures, I just like the sort of the softness they have, especially when they're blown up.
Now there is a question here. Are there any Circa lights in the projects?
Oh yeah,
there were a lot in the Kips Bay show house, I believe.
In that holiday house, all the lighting fixtures are Circa. And that townhouse we talked about when they showed the owl, the 2 lamps on the side are Circa for sure. And my house next to the dining table is a Circa fixture. So yes, Circa Lighting, we're on that website every day. It's always, they have a roster of designers designing for them that you trust the quality of what's there and the design integrity. So, and it's been really nice. The showrooms are beautiful and easy to work with. And so it's been, it's very much part of what we do, Circa Lighting.
Here's another question. Where did you get the black column in the bonus room that you referenced? It was that Schumacher wallpaper.
Love that. It's an Indian column and it weighs a ton. I just moved it to my new office in Salisbury and I had to move it myself. It's solid. It's really, it's ebonized mahogany, but it's a solid piece. I found that online from an antique dealer. And I just trusted that it would be cool and work, and it did. And that's another piece that's probably going to be. I have a pair of them. There's a pair of those, and there'll probably be many interiors in the future.
Wow. Mary Taylor asked, could you repeat the Benjamin Moore paint that you used in your house?
Yeah, all the trim is Notre Dame. That's a Benjamin Moore color story paint. And I think the walls are just like white dove or something, but Notre Dame is the color. That's the strong color that I talked about. Okay. Notre Dame.
Kathleen Peters asked, what do you think of the trend of mixing light fixture finishes in one room, chrome, brass, antique, gold? I mean, do you like to stick with one finish or do you like to mix them up?
I do. I think in general, I would say 80% is one finish, but I'd always think it's nice to, if you have a dark finish mixing it with a brass fixture of some sort. I wouldn't get too hung up on it.
Mhm.
It's nice to mix them up, but you just want to make sure it looks organized and thought about. But yeah, in general, I'd probably use, like I said, if it's a lot of fixtures, probably 75% is 75 to 80% is the same finish, and then I mix up other finishes within that.
Well, our friend Liz Nightingale has a question for you. In your home in Connecticut, your house in Connecticut is stunning. What is your favorite piece in your house that has the most history or was a great find?
Well, I'm so glad Liz asked that. I didn't set this up. I know Liz. I love Liz. And I was just looking at this cover and thinking, I wish I talked about that Irish console.
It's a beautiful piece.
That was when when I left David Easton's, I had my first project, and my first important piece of furniture that I sold from one of my own clients was from Florian Papp, and it was that console for an apartment on Park Avenue.
Wow.
I always loved that, and I always wanted a good piece of Irish furniture, but it just never happened. And when I bought this house and when I was doing this, this wasn't what was going to go there. I wasn't sure yet. I'm probably going to find an Asian piece or have a modern Parsons table made for this spot. And my client, her husband passed away, and she was, moving everything out of the apartment. And she said, listen, I have no place for this console. I know you've always wanted it. Would you like this for your new house?
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I know. I just talked this morning, and I was telling her she's just got the book, and she called me about it.
Oh,
But
so
no, it was really nice, and and she was my first client. It was the first real project I ever worked on, and for myself. And so it came, everything started full circle. Whether it's, I love the circle, telling the story, but the table, how it comes back to me all these years, my favorite piece of furniture ever. And then the photography, I started in high school doing that. And when I decided to be an interior designer, I had to do a portfolio review at FIT. And I didn't know I had to do that. But so all I had was some photographs that I took and some sketches that I did of my room. And I get to FIT and everybody's walking in with scale models and I'm going to be on the bus back to Middletown. This is over with, So the teachers were walking around looking at all the portfolios, and they got to mine, and I see them moving their finger around some of the photographs. So they asked who did it. So I came up and he said, your portfolio is very weak, but we see something in these photographs, and we're going to take a chance on you.
Oh.
So the photography is coming, everything's coming full circle a little bit. Nice thing about doing that.
It all weaves together in your story. Eloise Abrams has a question. How do you ensure balance the use of different furniture styles, periods, without making it so busy? And the same question with accessories. So you tend to mix a lot of periods. So is there a trick to kind of making it look more streamlined or soothing?
Well, yeah, sure.
Crazy? Well,
it's about balance. It's about balance visually. If you have a room with a lot of legs, you might want to balance it with something more solid, like my coffee table, and the ottoman helps quiet down some of the other pieces in that room. That gives it balance. Color can give it balance. I think these light colors that I use in my house helps balance out some of the more elaborate pieces of furniture. They're not that elaborate, but the more traditional pieces. But I think it's about grouping things that feel good together, whether they're similar of color or scale, and it doesn't have to be from the same place.
Huh.
And just trying to come up with combinations that look good. Also, what I try to do, and I'm not really good at this all the time, is I don't have to have everything I own out at the same time. So I try to put some things away and bring it back later, so it doesn't have that clutter.
Museum, you bring them in, you put them out.
In theory. In theory.
Theory.
Concept.
Jessica Brown has a question. What source do you love for cabinet hardware?
Well, we use, I just finished project with Garin. What I like about Garin is, it's expensive, but they have all the classic shapes and molds, and they have every price range too. It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive, but I use them a lot. And sometimes I'll stop on the way home to Katona Hardware.
Oh, yeah.
Got a great selection of everything. So there's a lot out there. The good thing about hardware has gotten much better over the years. It's gotten, there's been awareness of how important hardware is. So I do think it's easier to find good hardware in a lot of places.
There's a question here about any resource for typical interior recessed lighting with a good CRI, your go-to brand. Do you have one?
I have to look that up with what we use on a normal basis. But, you know, I just found out, which I'm going to take advantage of. I just found out that Circa Lighting has in-house people now helping you with it.
Technical help, technical assistance.
And I'm going to go down and check out because they have new fixtures that I hadn't seen. And like I said, lighting keeps changing all the time. So I don't really want to get caught up with one fixture all the time because things are changing. So I'm anxious to get down there and see what they have and take their advice.
Well, when you're in Connecticut, come down to the one in Norwalk, and then we can have lunch.
Anytime. I'll do that. Any
All
day.
right. We have a question from Magdalena Kita. What's your favorite go-to modern furniture?
Good question. Well, you know what I really love is, for outdoor furniture, I love Janus & C.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like because they have some traditional lines also, but they're contemporary outdoor furniture. Really, some of those pieces I can use indoors. For newly made things, Holly Hunt still has beautiful things. A Knoll. There's still classics that pop up that are timeless, and they still always work.
Right. All right. Laura Black has a question. Best advice for mixing antique lighting with modern. I have a period home with some original fixtures, but want to add some clean lines. So can you help her?
Sure. I mean, I do think, if you say you pick your spot. So it's, if it's a dining room, okay, do you want a traditional chandelier and you can do modern sconces inside the room or modern lamps. So maybe one thing or the other is the star. So maybe it's the traditional chandelier is over the table and everything else is modern around it.
Oh.
So balance it out that way so that more emphasis is going, or vice versa. So the emphasis switches to that piece that you want to highlight.
So there has to be a hero somewhere.
Somewhere.
A star, going back to theater.
Totally, just right in the middle and just light, that be the star, and then everything else around it can. And what's nice about that is that those modern. You say you have a traditional chandelier over the table. As you're sitting there having dinner, you start noticing the beautiful modern sconces and things like that. So, like I said, not everything has to hit you at once in a room.
It's the slow reveal. It's like peeling an onion. It's you don't want. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Circa. Thank you, Monticelli Press, for this beautiful book. I encourage all of you to go out and get a copy, and also to pick up the November issue of Connecticut Cottages and Gardens, because you'll see more of Matthew's beautiful, beautiful home in Connecticut. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Gail. I had a great time. It was the best thing I've done in a long time, and I got to sit with my dear friend Matthew. So thank you.
Thank you, G.A.